Hey folks, how's it going? Thought I'd do an update. A few things been happening over the last few weeks. You may notice my water's a little bit cloudy, although I have to say it always looks cloudier than it actually is through the glass, so despite cleaning the glass. But anyway, I've also added a few new fish. I don't know if you can see them there. Oh, probably not. There is a platinum ogon in there somewhere I added yesterday, and a goshiki, and there's an asagi. They're all small. They're even smaller than the goldfish. They're kind of keeping their distance, if you can see. Can I see any of them there? I can't. But they were present and correct this morning. But I've a bit of work to do in the pond. There's a bit of cleaning to do. For some reason I have a stick down there. How a stick got in there I don't know. I suspect my 15-year-old son, although he denies all knowledge. But anyway, I'll take that out. Just trying to get... there's the platinum ogon down there, you can just see. There's the goshiki, he's in behind, you can just see him disappear there. Will he come out again? They're mixing in well. You can see the ogon again. The goshiki is beside him. And I'm trying to find this asagi. As you can see, they're small. They're even smaller than the sanki. So hopefully I get a bit of growth on them before the winters or the summer is out. But I'm having some challenges with levels. Sorry for the noise, that's the year-old Rottweiler. Tarzan has his Asodi up there who's 10 and is not interested. Tarzan is a year-old, and that's his squeaky ball that he likes to make noise with, so apologies for that. No, I started to get issues. Started feeding around April time frame, gradually increased it. Then sort of, well, I wouldn't say surprisingly, some people have said to me that, you know, the pond's only a year old, so you can't be too surprised, but I started to get nitrite again, up at 0.25, not hugely concerning. You know, the pond's, just for those of you who don't know, it's running about, I'd say 15 months at this stage, so just over a year old. And I was using my API test kit, so just monitoring that, and then I noticed over the last few days went from 0.25 up to 0.5, so I did start easing back on the feeding. I'm, you know, comfortable enough with 0.25 as long as it stays there. If it starts to go much higher than that, I eased back on the feeding. And then I got the opportunity over the last couple of weeks just to go in here to the filter house to get a Hanna test kit. So I got two actually. I got that's for chlorine, total chlorine, just to test the big blue, and I also got nitrite. I suppose the two I check for. Ammonia I don't check for that often because the filter is kind of cycles, so I have been using my nitrite test kit. You can't see the date on that, but it is 2024 expiry date. Now if you go back about a year, at the start of last season, I was testing for nitrite as well, and I was getting readings of 0, and I got a bit suspicious about that, and because it was a new setup and I was adding fish, and I said, well, that can't be right. I have to have some nitrite there. So my test kit at that stage was probably over a year old, so I went out and bought a new API test kit, and lo and behold, I tested with the new kit, and I think my nitrite was actually 0.5, where the older kit was showing me 0. So I now get to this point where I have a test kit. I wouldn't say this one's even a year old, this one. There's not an awful lot left in it because I do use it a fair bit and have been in the last few days. It's telling me my nitrate is at 0.5. So you know these ones, you have the vial, you put your 5 drops in, you mix it up, wait a few minutes, and then you compare it against this. So the real baby blue for the nitrite is 0. Then you go varying degrees of purple and reddish purple down to up to 5. So anyway, I got the Hanna the other day and decided to give this a go. And the first time I did it, you're probably aware of the Hannas. Phil on Telford Koi Pond has a really good video on these if you want to see how they work. So I'm going to use it in hand. So they work on a light basis. So it's the same principle. You have a vial here, you fill with 10 ml of water. There's a reagent powder in a sachet, and then it goes into this. But the difference is, instead of comparing the sample to a colour chart, it actually takes a baseline from your pond water with nothing in it, and then you add the reagent, mix it, put it in again, and let it, I think it takes 15 minutes for the nitrate. So it compares your plain pond water to the pond water with the reagent in it. Now I did it the night before last, and I was getting something like 400 parts per billion. Now that's nitrite. Phil was explaining this. Go back and look at Phil's video if you want it, but it's not pure, it's not nitrite, and it needs to be configured. That is nitrogen nitrite, and you need to multiply it by 3.29, and then this, because it's the very low range, it's parts per billion. So you then need to divide it by 1,000 to get parts per million. So when I did it the night before, I was getting nitrite of 1.5, and I said, got to be doing something wrong. It can't be that wrong. So anyway, last night sat down, watched Phil's video very closely, said, right, I am doing it properly. Got my water very carefully, went through the whole process, came up with 400 and something parts per billion, converted it to nitrite, divided it by 1,000, and lo and behold, my nitrite is 1.5. So bear in mind, this year-old test kit or so, API has been telling me it's 0.5, and the actual nitrite is 3 times that. So needless to say, fairly anxious last night after putting 3 new fish in over the last few days. Not great with any nitrite, but with that much. So stopped feeding. Last night I turned my trickle in up full, so it's still going in about 1.5 litres a minute, and I'm going to now do my usual water change, where I'll do a flush out of the bottom drains. I'll use the back of the ponds to refill the main pond, and then I'll fill up the back of the ponds with fresh water. So I've previous videos of how I do that, I won't go through it again. But just concerning, and I think these Hanna test kits, from what I've read from a lot of people, they are kind of the, you know, for the aquarium hobby. There are more expensive ones, but these kind of light sensing ones are the kind of gold standard, as opposed to ones where you read against the colour chart. Not that those ones are bad, but you really do need to be careful with the dates on these. And the nitrite, I always understood that from the APIs that they do go out of date, that if they're open about a year you need to change them. But I always understood that it was the nitrate one that, well, but my experience twice now as being with 2 kits is that the nitrite, and these all work, by the way, on the same principle. You know, whether you're NT Labs or, you know, it's the same type of reagent, the same principle. And I think even with the Hanna, probably the reagent is very similar, it's just that this does a much more accurate reading. So last night as well, just to check, I took my tap water and I did a test on it. Now I need to get some more reagents. You get 6 with the unit itself, and I need to buy another box of them, and they're not too easy to get here in Ireland because a lot of the koi dealers in the UK will not ship to Ireland anymore for obvious reasons. because it's just so much hassle in terms of customs declarations and everything else. But anyway, I'll figure out something. So I need to buy some more reagents, but I took my tap water, did a test on that, and it came up with the equivalent of 8 parts per billion, or 0.00. So in other words, absolutely totally negligible nitrite in the drinking water, which is what you'd expect. I also checked my Big Blue when I had it connected up, so again it's total chlorine. So it would be, this is the one I believe Dave in Coastal Koi says you should use for your Big Blue. So it's total chlorine. It will check for chloramines and various other chlorine and free chlorine and whatever else. So I checked that and I came up with 51 parts per billion, which I think goes down to 0.051 parts per million, which is totally negligible. You know, you're always, the thing is with these, you do get 0 on a standard test kit, but these you get a very accurate reading. And I know Phil was saying on Telford Koi Pond, you know, there has to be ammonia in your pond, there has to be nitrite in your pond for the bacteria to survive. So these always will give you a reading, but it's a very, very small, negligible reading. But anyway, 1.5 parts per million is not a small, negligible reading. So I'm going to stop feeding and do a sizable water change, and I'll do another test maybe tomorrow, just to be sure that I brought that down. Now, having said that, the fish are fine. They're looking for food. The 3 new fish I put in, the Ogon last night looked a bit odd. I was concerned, but then, you know, fish can be a bit skittish when you put them into a new pond. He was up around the top, hanging around the entrance to the skimmer, but he's fine today, he's swimming around. The other drama that I've had, sorry, I have a new, talk about that in a minute. This is a bit of a mess in here. My UV failed, so that's an 80 watt amalgam bulb, and you can see the bits floating around. So it just blew. I noticed there last Sunday I was getting a very faint purple hue from it, and checked the bulb and it's gone. I noticed as well when I took the bulb out there was a bit of damp in the quartz, so what I'm going to do is totally drain down the filter, take out the quartz and just check the seals and make sure there isn't a crack in the quartz, because if there is, I'm going to have to replace that. But what I'm going to do is, because I had difficulty sourcing an 80 watt bulb, they're not that common. Now an 80 watt I believe does up to about 10 or 12,000 gallons, so it's a small lake. The reason I went for the 80 watt is because when I was buying the UV, there was a very slight, I think it was about €10 between the cost of the 40 and the 80, so I went for the 80. However, I have got a 40 watt and I'm going to put that in. The reason I went for the 40 is because that's all I need, and obviously having 40 watts less on 24 hours a day is going to save me some money in the current climate. You can see from my yoke there, it is a 40/80 watt amalgam control unit. And I think these are all T5, so they work on, as far as I know, 12 volts. Now what I did was, a friend gave me a bulb he changed a while ago that still works. That's my filter cleaning. But I'll put this in just to make sure it works. So if this blows, I won't put in the new one. But I'd be 98% sure I'll have no problem. The only issue is, as you can see from this, I have a very long quartz sleeve in there, but having a 40 watt in that quartz sleeve shouldn't make any difference. So that's the amalgam. As I say, when I drain down the filter, I'll have a look at the quartz, and I want to make sure it's sealed up as well. When I unscrew the yoke, there's a rubber seal there. I might put a bit of Vaseline or something in it. Another thing that hasn't done my filter any favours over the last few days is I got a lot of any of the new fishies around. I think that's, no, they're very shy, these new fish. Haven't seen, and you can see the Ogon just disappearing down there again. He is very small. And I had this problem last year as well. Talk about the two lilies in a second. You can just about see there is blanket weed in the back. I'm guessing this is because there's more light in here. I mean, it's the same water. So what I did was last weekend, I turned off the waterfall and I treated the back of the pond with a full dose of blanket answer for 2,000 litres, which is what's held in this, and I left it for about 5 or 6 hours, and then I turned it back on. But what blanket, thanks Tarzan, what blanket answer can do is kick your filter a bit, so I don't think that's helped my nitrite either. So it put me on the API test kit from 0.25 up to 0.5, which I think in reality was probably 0.5 up to 0.75, because it wasn't reading well. So I want to give that a bit of a clean up, and you can see around my baskets of media there that there's still a fair bit of, I think Tarzan knows I'm doing a video, do you know that? There's still a fair bit of blanket weed. I'll back that off. I also added a couple of lilies. I've been threatening to add lilies to this part of the pond, so I got a couple there. Just have them in the middle away from the returns, are just down, where's my finger, just down here. So lilies don't like too much water flow, and you can see there's not much there. So they actually do look as though they've even sprouted a little bit over the last 12 hours or so since I put them in. So I also got fertilizer tabs. I know from experience with lilies, they do like their fertilizer, so I got these slow release fertilizer stabs and just stuck one in each. And what I'll do is then, when they grow out a bit this year, for next year I will break them up into more pots, because dear enough, those, they were 25 sterling. It's that time of year, isn't it, for buying high stuff. Oops, I'm not trying to kill myself with my net hanging over the edge. So that's the back of the pond. As I say, I'll clean it up and try and get most of that blanket weed out. I'm hoping as well that the lilies will out compete the blanket weed for the few nutrients. My phosphates are 0, you know, so it's just probably light. There's more light in this part of the pond. Obviously this is 90 centimeters deep, and the other part is 1.8, so there's absolutely no blanket weed in the main part at all. But you know, I was keeping an eye on that over the last for a couple of days, and I was just spreading. So to hell, I'm gonna treat it, because I don't want to get to the stage where it spreads and starts blocking drains and all sorts of things. So still none of the new fish there. You have to take my word for it, they are in there. So anyway, I'm going to get and drain this filter and check the quartz, and I'll come back to you after that and get the UV running again. But I'll just do a big water change at the back with the back today, and I'll probably do a couple of 1,000 litres, and I say I've probably done 1,000 litres overnight anyway. So that should definitely help the nitrite, and just try and get that down to a more manageable level before I start feeding again. Although, as you can see, the fish are none the worse of it. It's not really bothering them, and even the new ones I put in there, they're quite happy. And you can kind of see there, if you see, it's a bit cloudy, and I know in an earlier video somebody mentioned to me, oh, your water looks a bit cloudy, but when you go up here, now it is a little bit cloudy today, but it's nowhere near as bad as it looks here. It's just whether it's reflection on the glass, or I need something a bit stronger to clean the outside of the glass, I don't know. But I do notice that. It's not somebody I've noticed in any other ponds that I've seen, but anyway, just still trying to find some of those new fish. No. Anyway, so listen, I'll go and do a little bit of work on the filter, flush the drains, check that quartz, and put in the new UV, and set the back up for a water change, and I'll come back to you then. Cheers. Right, filter drain down. I just have one of the pumps running that's feeding the spin drifter to keep air moving in the pond. So you can see at the bottom there I have the UV going in, so obviously when I'm going to remove the quartz, if I did it when there was water in the filter, there'd be a big hole on the side and the water would come out, so obviously have to drain the filter. So just did my usual. I've already done it. I drain down the dirty side and then I open up all one by one. The one on the far side, both left and right, are the bottom drains. I'm not too sure which is which, to be honest, and the one in the middle is a skimmer. So I just give them all a flush. I give the bottom drains a flush of about 3 or 4 times each, and then vac it up as it comes in, and get a fair bit of gunk in there, to be honest with you. I do it every 2 weeks and it works fine. I've mentioned before as well, and you can see those slats down there better now. So that's where the water, the drum, by the way, just a quick explanation as to how this works. So you can see the 3 inlets down below. They come in, the water rises up, and you can see the hole with the dirt around it there. The water goes into the center of the drum. The drum is a big sieve, so from in out the water is strained, okay? So it's not from out in, it's from in out, and this is just a big sieve. And as it starts to block with debris, the water level falls. You can see the float switch there. Once the level falls beyond a certain level, it will then trigger a wash cycle. So the motor here, all done by the brains in this box, the motor here starts spinning. The wash pump, you can see down there in the corner, starts squirting, comes out through the nozzles, and as the debris comes up the top, it gets pushed down into the chute, down to the waste, which goes down into my gutter out the back of the shed. That's how it works. It stops, the water comes in, goes into the center. Again, it siphons inside out through the big roundy sieve drum, and blocks up again, water level drops, cycle goes on again. So that's how it works. Very little maintenance on it. Then I have the biochamber here with all my media. I have 150 litres of media in there, which is, I think, 25 litres more than is supposed to be in there, but there is room. The only thing I find is I've a 130 litres per minute pump on that, and even when the water level falls down towards the lower end for a few minutes, there's very little boiling of the media. Rinse cycle, water rises, it starts boiling again. Probably not a big thing, but might mean just I probably have maybe a bit too much media in there because of the problem I mentioned earlier. I'm reluctant to take it out. So I mentioned that my UV down there, I'm going to take that quartz out. I probably won't do it when I'm on camera because I want 2 hands. I'll just check and make sure it's not cracked, and I have some Vaseline here just to do the seal on it. You know, there is slats there and there is media. I'm slightly worried that I have UV going in towards the media. Now the only thing, when I look at it cycling, there seems to be the same pieces of media down there. It doesn't cycle all the media through that. And the media down there as well, I don't know if you can see, but it's very white in comparison to the media here that's a bit darker. And probably you can even see there as well, because I did add another 50 litres of media about 4 or 5 months ago, and you can see it in there. It's whiter than the older stuff. So, you know, you hear arguments around, oh, the darkness of the media doesn't matter, but a lot of people will say that when your plastic media turns dark, it means that it's maturing, and as you can see there, mine is very dark. Am I getting UV light leaking there? I probably am. Now there is, I spoke to the manufacturer DVS and they said it was okay in there, it was fine. There is a bracket you can see there for the UV. However, because I have the 80 watt, it's too long to fit on that bracket. Now I suppose I could just sit it in there. I don't know, I might try it when I have it out and see if, even if it just sort of sat in there, it should be okay, and just try it. The disadvantage of having it there, but there's an advantage, is that maybe you're treating the water before it goes into the drum, as opposed to when it comes out the other side. Maybe that's an advantage. The disadvantage is though that I'll get a lot of biofilm build up on the drum, which, as you can see, the drum's been 1 in 14 months and it's spotlessly clean. Is that biofilm a concern? Possibly not. I mean, if I am getting some leakage of UV in there, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to take that out now and I'll let you know how I get on. But as you can see, and that's the clean side of the drum. Again, put my torch down there if you can see. There is a bit of dirt down there. You do get this sort of brownish discolorized. I suppose the fact that there's no UV here or here, you get it, or here you get it. Here it tends to be very clean, although you do get a bit around the top. I just give it a rub of one of these scratchless yolks every now and again, and keeps it fairly clean. Not that that's all it is purely aesthetic. It doesn't actually improve the function of the drum by any means, so I don't want to keep my media dry for too long, obviously. Oh, by the way, this thing here, I think I mentioned it before, this is a gully rinse, so every 10 washes I think this valve opens and there's a rinse goes through here, so as well as cleaning the drum, it flushes out the gully. It was a relatively cheap option on the drum, so I went with it. What you can see here, probably annoyingly, is this nut here is obviously not stainless steel and it is starting to rust, but there you go. I wonder how long this solenoid valve will last, but small problems. So anyway, I'll get cracking on and take out this UV and have a good look at it, and I'll talk to you in a few minutes. Right, a quick update. You know what I've decided I'm going to do? I'm going to blank that off and I'm going to move my UV here. I did check it, and if I unscrew this a little bit so it doesn't sort of clamp on as it's designed, but it does sit on that unit, and I've managed to undo there. That's how you feed the wires through, and I have 2 screws from that. I put that back on, so I'm going to move my thermometer sensor, which was in there, in here, so it's not directly impacted by the UV, and I'll put the UV in here. I'll just see how it goes, give it a try. I'm just a little bit paranoid, as I say, around the UV being down near the media and having access to the media, so I think I'd feel happier, and I can get away with the 80 watt. I just have it up there out of the way because they're so bloody delicate. I've broken them in the past, believe it or not, on other filters, so I need to clean that out, that bracket. Then I can put this pluggy thing, which I managed to drop down there, but I get it, it's this thing here, there's 2 screws in it. But as you can see, you know, the water can still come up to here. It is fairly watertight, although there's no seal. The water doesn't come up because if the water came up that far, it would overflow into the gully. The gully acts as an overflow as well on the filter, as well as the waste gully. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick it in there. I haven't tried the bulb to see if it works. It should do, and it does. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It just needs to sit on the bracket. I did have it initially when I put it in. It was sitting on the quartz, the end of the quartz. There was this spring on the quartz, by the way, just to support the 80 watt bulb. I'm not putting in an 80 watt bulb, so I'll take it out. And it's that rubber seal there. That's all there is. So there's no lip. I don't know how good that seal is. Now, I don't, you know, I got 14 months out of the bulb, but you can see there's no lip on the quartz, and that just sits in, and then this thing goes up and there's sort of a concave there it sits into. But while it doesn't leak out around, I'm not too sure. I will put a bit of Vaseline on it and just slide that up over it. Now, and you can't even have that little lip, because when you put the connector on that's here, sorry, I'm flicking around all over the place, it pushes the quartz flush with the seal, so it's not even as though the quartz sits out proud of that. Yeah, so anyway, listen, I have a proper, I'll just take this off and I'll keep it off, and obviously keep it aside if I do decide to put the UV back in there at any stage. But I think I'll feel happier. I'll probably get this biofilm build up, although I haven't had a lot of biofilm build up in there. but I know there's plenty of other people have drums that, you know, when you have a standalone drum, having the UV in there is not an issue and is actually recommended. When you have a combi and there's light potentially getting at the media, I may be paranoid, but I'd rather not, and I think I'll just make that change. And I have the bits off, and I'll come back to you now in a minute when I have it in place, and I'll check to make sure there's a bulb working. Right, quick update. I managed to pass just about the connector for the amalgam through the inlet here. So I moved the float switch and the thermometer, so the thermometer wasn't here, so I've passed that in there. You can see it does sort of rest, it won't lock onto it, but I mean there's no significant flow of water there, so it's not as though it's going to go anywhere. And you can see it down there, it's not even, or can you see, it's not touching the bottom. So I checked the bulb and it works, so I'm happier with that, to be honest. So I'm going to go with that and get some water back in and start vacuuming outside. So listen, I'll leave it at that. I'll let you know in future videos how it goes, but I better get some water on my media, and I'm going to vac the bottom of the pond and get that stick out. That is a mystery as to how it got there, but I do suspect my 15-year-old son, as I mentioned. Oh, before I let water into the tank, it would be a good idea to put an end cap on that, because I'd probably find out fairly quickly that I forgot to do that. These, by the way, I'm told are, if you want a higher flow, you can have outlets that bypass the media chamber, so they come straight from the drum out to a pump and somewhere. I'm not too sure why you'd want to, maybe going to a water feature or something, but not something I want to use. So there's one on the other side as well that I don't use, I just have them blanked off. And they do have 3 outlets as well. I don't use one of them at the minute anyway. As I said before, this one goes up to the back pond, to the waterfall, and this one goes into the 2 returns on the main pond, and they're both closed, because if I didn't have those closed, water would leak in through pumps and fill up, as you find out when you have these things. Gravity is an amazing thing, and it's how the system works, but the water can come from anywhere, or from either inlet or outlet when you have the system turned off, so you need to close it off from both ends. So I'll leave it at that. Interested in your comments on my nitrite and my test kit dilemma, if you've had experience of either. I would recommend the Hanna, as I said. Phil, his stuff is well worth watching, and he does a really good review of the Hanna test kits. He's got a number of them, and he shows how they work in detail. I won't bother repeating that. Also my UV, if you've any thoughts on that. I'm happier. Am I overthinking it, or is it for the best? Interested in your thoughts. Thanks, talk to you again.